bedroom or actually probably near my entertainment center. It'd be a good place for it.
Yeah, mate. Mm-hmm. Lily's gonna have to think of a spot for hers.
Yeah. It is the Super Clash Podcast, a podcast about shorter games. It is episode 79. I'm your host, Kale.
I'm Connor.
What was that look for?
Oh, that's my Tucker Carlson look.
Okay. Your mouth wasn't open wide enough.
Oh, yeah, mouth agape. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right. My bad.
You had to have resting confusion. So.
Yeah, confused and angry.
How was your week, Connor?
It's all right, I guess.
Yeah, about the same. Since we last hung out, though, I'm just gonna go straight into this. We did see the quintessential quintuplets film.
We did,
and I'll say right out of the gate, I enjoyed it. But I would say it was about 30 to 40 minutes longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
And even though I love all the characters, the resolution was a little disappointing. I'll just leave it at that. I'm sorry for people who like it. I wasn't too thrilled.
I kind of question who was wanting that outcome. I can't imagine a majority of the audience was on board with that outcome.
But here's the thing, like, I can kind of see the reasons, like with her backstory and her motivation, but
we got most of that in this movie.
Exactly.
Disregarding all of the things that happen over the first two seasons, basically,
I get it, but at the same time, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, the other girls had better chemistry with Futuro.
I would agree.
So, and I'll just leave it at that. This week, you and I have been house hunting, mostly for my wife and I.
Well, all for your wife and you, because I don't need a house,
of course. But you know what I mean. And there's some couple. Okay, well, there's one okay one. The first two were shit.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
But that's our 3 to 6 month goal, is to have a house.
Hey man, once you lock it in, you get that offer secured, it's go from there, dude.
Right. And I'm kind of hoping that I'm working to get a better job, or at least I'm getting back into it. Therapy is really kind of helping me with that, and kind of figuring out what the root of the cause that gets me like 75% of the way, and then dropping off in the final 25. So I'm working with a therapist to kind of help me get through that, so I can hopefully get a better job that's not on my feet and just making my ankle worse.
Yeah.
But other than that, I got nothing.
You do anything fun this weekend?
I am going out of town.
Okay.
I'm going down to my wife's place where she grew up. I'm seeing my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my nieces, and we're going to celebrate my brother-in-law's 22nd birthday and a very, very late Thanksgiving, because that was the only time we could carve out to have that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit late, but at the end of the day, a Thanksgiving is just a big dinner with family.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go see Jurassic World live this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So that should be pretty sweet.
You get to see live dinosaurs.
A dinosaur.
Live. But
animatronic and puppeted.
Are you going to get high with them after?
Oh, if they'll let me. You go in the back, be like, hey, T-Rex, you want
to get high with dinosaurs?
Oh, it'll be great. I think it'll be a lot of fun. The hard part will be if they have a merch shop, not buying everything there.
Oh.
Because when I went to Universal years ago, they have like a whole like Jurassic store. It was very hard not to buy everything. I just didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I was just like,
It doesn't help that Universal marks up all that shit like 70%.
Yeah. And the real hard part sometimes is with like, be it a theme park or an event like this too. Like, I don't want to buy something and then find it at Target 2 days later for half the price. Like, right. I want it to be like exclusive to that event, right? And so some of the dumb thing is when I went to Universal, I would ask them like, "Hey, what is a park exclusive item?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, I don't know, all of it." And I'm like, "No, okay, never mind."
I'm curious if you can go on eBay and try to find like shirts from Universal Studios for like a quarter of the price.
You can go on eBay and find stuff from Universal, but usually it's at the same price or higher because people are selling it at a markup.
Interesting. Okay.
You can also go to the Universal store. They have a website for it where you can buy stuff from the parks. The only problem is the selection is like piss poor. Like, it's hardly anything.
That's probably intentional to get you to go to the park.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna try to get at least one event exclusive item from the Jurassic World Live if I can.
I'm excited for you with that.
Should be pretty sweet.
Yeah. And one more thing before we kind of get into our topic. Across from me, I'm looking at the Christmas gift you got me.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. What it is, it's a plexiglass like painting. I think painting, I'm pretty
Print,
sure. Print of the characters from Your Name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like right at the point of the movie to where it's twilight hour and they meet each other finally for the first time. And it's a very, very emotional scene, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie, and I love it.
It's got a lot of little subtle stuff like the red string, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really liked that, and I honestly, I was gonna have to get it for one of us because I was like, I want that too.
Man, so awesome! I love it.
Yeah, man.
All right, we're gonna dive in. So last week, Connor and I made a top 10 list of the best games that we played for the show in 2022. This episode, however, we're going the complete opposite way. We're going to do our bottom 10. It'll be the same format as the last week, to where we will switch off our 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and then when we're done, we'll try to bring them together to have a definitive bottom 10 list.
Yeah. And so number 1 will be the worst game.
Yes. And we actually started this podcast late because your computer decided to be shitty and lose your list. So you had to kind of try to remember your list.
Yeah, I had to go back through my completions for this year and be like, all right, what did I have on there? I hope I got the order at least close to right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
kind of how I approached it was, like last week, I really thought about the games that we played, and 5 of them really stuck out to me, and I figured that was big enough to kind of warrant them being the bottom 5.
I think 3 stuck out to me strong as like, all right, yeah, you were not a good game. And then 2 of them were just like games that I was just kind of like, or I had things I liked about it, but it was still not great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And that's kind of how I approached it too. Like there were games where like I didn't like this game, but it didn't warrant like being in my top 2 really.
Mm-hmm.
I started last week, Connor, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is, drum roll, Little Nightmares, with the caveat of the Switch version.
Okay.
And the reason I put this is the game on Switch, the load times were so atrocious. 45 seconds between deaths, mind you. And a game that is basically, the whole mechanic is you die often, but that's how you learn how the puzzles work. It completely broke the experience for me. And I know that you and I were both getting like very frustrated, and it turns a game, that maybe doesn't take that long to beat into a long slog of frustration.
Like, we probably had maybe 2.5 hours of game left. It doubled the length of our playtime purely because of the load times.
Yeah, we were playing all night to get that thing done.
Yeah, I was very tired once that game was done, and which is the shame because the game itself is good.
Yes,
it's a very good and fun game is just don't play it on the Switch.
Yes, I would say on any other platform, I guess I can't say that because I haven't played the other platforms. I'm assuming on any other platform, that game would run great and would probably actually make a top 10 list instead of a bottom 10. But this version is a no-go.
No, definitely not. Okay, so my number 5. Carrion.
Okay, I'm shocked you put it there, but I'm willing to hear your response.
So I really tried to make my number 5 mostly a game that I didn't think was overall bad, but just left me feeling like disappointed.
All right.
There was nothing inherently wrong with Carrion performance-wise. Overall, it performed pretty well. And there were some really good things going for it. The concept of Carrion is absolutely genius. It's a reverse horror game where you play as the monster. And as a result, you get a super like alien thing-esque experience. However, the navigation was extremely frustrating. There was never really any good landmarks of where to go. I found myself backtracking without even realizing I was backtracking through most of the game. And you're such a fragile creature, you would die so quickly and not even have a chance to really kind of figure out what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If the best way I can describe this game is if Katana Zero is the thesis, Carrion is kind of the antithesis of Katana Zero, where you enter a room, there are enemies you need to take out and try to move on. With Katana Zero, you don't get that frustration if you die. With Carrion, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So this game just it got me to the point where like I just wanted to finish the game to finish it. I didn't care about the story. I didn't care about how the ending was. It was just overall very frustrating to play. The puzzles weren't that fun, really, and it was just overall just kind of just a disappointing experience for me.
I guess I didn't feel that strongly about it. I don't think by any means it would have gotten close to a top 10 list for me, but it was just one of those games that was just like, it was all right. There were things that I enjoyed. There were things that I didn't. And it landed somewhere in the middle for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my thoughts on that one.
Like, overall, like, there's some good elements in the game. But like I said, my number 5 was just my slot for just a disappointing experience for me.
Okay.
So, yep, that's my number 5.
Well, on the subject of disappointing, my number 4 is Max Payne 3.
Okay.
So hear me out on this, because I don't know if you share this thought, but Max Payne 3 for me was incredibly disappointing, especially coming from a studio like Rockstar. And the fact that it launched around the same time as a lot of heavy hitter third-person cover-based shooters. The fact that this game couldn't get it right is just such a disappointment. And the game was so frustrating. The level design was so poor constantly. And the character was just so unlikable that I just didn't care what happened to him the entire time. It was an unpleasant experience for a game that so many over the years have said, oh, I love this game. Max Payne is great, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have incredibly high hopes, but they were at least a little up there, and this didn't even come close to hitting them.
It's kind of funny because people who want to play like a John Wick style game other than the John Wick game, which is more like, I've never played it, but it's more like that's more like an isometric XCOM style of game.
Yeah.
People suggest Max Payne as like scratching that John Wick itch.
Mm-hmm.
It does it kind of with the gunplay. However, I would say Max Payne ages the worst of any Rockstar game.
At least any that I've played, yeah.
Yeah, because I've played Grand Theft Auto 4 relatively recently in the last 6 years or so, and that game still holds up pretty well with the gunplay, the driving, the ragdolls. This one just not so much.
But think about like when this came out too. It came out around the time that Gears 3 probably came out.
Mm-hmm.
Came out around the time of Mass Effect 3. Far superior cover-based shooters, and you would expect a little bit better from a studio like Rockstar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I share that sentiment.
Okay.
So it didn't make my top 5, but yeah.
Maybe it'll make your bottom 10.
Oh wait, sorry. Yeah. Like bottom 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My number 4, Xenocrisis.
Okay.
Xenocrisis had a lot of things going for it that I really, really enjoyed. It was a twin-stick shooter, which I love my twin-stick shooters. They're great. It was also inspired by Aliens. The film Aliens, like even down to some of the enemy designs and your soldier that you control. It's super over the top, cheesy. The monsters that you fight and the bosses that you fight, and I loved the idea of the upgrade system, but it was far too punishing, way too punishing in my opinion, and the fact that I had to feel like I had to use cheats to win, it does not seem like. I don't want to say it's bad game design because I understand the difficulty was intentional. However, like the difficulty wasn't in the same realm as Elden Ring, to where if you die, you can kind of understand why you died in Elden Ring. Like maybe you got too greedy, maybe you haven't quite figured out how to roll into or away from this attack. Really, in Xenocrisis, they just overwhelm you. They just swarm you in all directions, and you don't have time to react all that much. And the weapon pickups and everything were hard to see because there's so much chaos going on. And if you die once, you don't get the true ending.
Yep, and that's bullshit. That's made bullshit. Me angry.
At the very least, if you lose all your lives and continue, make that the caveat.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to hear the get good arguments. I don't want to hear well, that's just how games used to be.
No.
I don't want to hear it.
See, I kind of find I have a little bit of issues with that whole, that's how games used to be, because the game designer wanted to pay homage to some of the arcade classics or arcade cabinets of like Smash TV or of the like. For one, Smash TV was nowhere near that hard in my memory.
Yeah. And the guy was such a prick about it, too, when people were complaining about the difficulty.
And two, a lot of those old arcade cabinets, they deliberately made the game more difficult and more punishing to get you to keep feeding quarters into the cabinet. I watched a YouTube video about a year ago of a guy who basically proved that the third person you fight in Mortal Kombat 2 cheats to beat you, to get you to feed more quarters. And the fact that it purposely almost cheats is very frustrating. At least that's my opinion. Don't at me with that. It was bullshit.
Yeah, I can't imagine an average gamer or even a slightly above average gamer playing this game and doing well. Like I can't fathom it, because I've been playing games since probably 1996. I think I started playing games when I was about 4 years old. And so I grew up with a lot of these older games. I grew up on a Super Nintendo, and I didn't get my own game system for several years later. So I played tough games. It's not like I was coddled and played, a lot of the easy games. I didn't grow up on a fucking Wii, okay? I grew up on the old 16-bit games.
Right.
And it just wasn't fun. And so I would agree with you. It belongs on the bottom list.
Yeah. Did you have that too?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. So what is? Wait, we just did number 4, right? Okay.
You finished your 4. I'm on 3.
Okay. What is your number 3?
Ether 1.
Okay.
That game, it committed the cardinal sin of just not being a fun game. It had no redeeming qualities in my book other than a potentially meaningful story. I don't even want to say enjoyable story. Meaningful story. Like, it had a story to tell that had a point to the story, and it tried to tell it in a creative way. It just wasn't entertaining, and the game just felt like I'm wandering around picking up random objects
with poorly laid out puzzles, almost by design, because I said this in the last episode. I get that they're trying to simulate dementia by like putting you in these weird things and grabbing things that you forget about, and your inventory end up being getting like cluttered and like you're hoarding. But still, I don't mean to cut you off. The puzzles were not intuitive. Like, I don't know how anyone could have done this without a guide.
I don't know anybody who could have had fun with it. Like, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Is like all of these games that I've mentioned and will continue to mention as we get further into this list, I at least found redeeming qualities in. This one wasn't broken. It wasn't unfair per se. It just wasn't fun, which is the one thing a video game needs to be at the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
There were fun moments in the games that I've mentioned so far.
Walking simulators are more fun than this.
Yeah.
Like, I played a game not about a year ago called Depression, and it's really just a walking simulator telling a story about this, I want to say 7th grader battling his depression through high school, and all you did was walk and read text, but it was far more engaging than this one because at least Depression had decent music.
Yeah, this didn't have good music, and the setting was bland, uninteresting, lifeless. You know, it just wasn't a good game.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's your number 3.
Yeah, what's yours?
My number 3, Ever Forward.
That seems generous.
Well, you'll see what my number 2 and number 1 is, and hopefully you would understand.
Interesting. Okay, go on.
So the only thing that Everforward had going for it was the story seemed interesting, with like this like climate change or of some kind, but everything else was just complete garbage. The way they taught you how the mechanics work was poor. For example, like they say that these iBots react to sound, and they taught you that by like throwing a box, and the iBot would turn in that direction. What they didn't teach you is that your jumping alerts them as well. And I did not know that.
Yeah. The game's biggest problem is it just doesn't explain how the world works.
No.
And every puzzle that you solve doesn't feel like you're solving it right.
No.
Even when you are.
Yeah, it's almost like the game plays as almost like a proof of concept. Like, this is what we want to go for, but they never innovated on it or laid out intuitive puzzles or anything. Because the mechanics themselves, they seem like in more talented hands, like it would work.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, this one just didn't. Aside from the fact that the puzzles were just not good, it was glitchy, it was boring, like
emphasis on glitchy, my god.
And for a 2-3 hour game, it felt long because you couldn't figure out how the puzzles worked.
No.
It's like I know I have it as my number 3, but Ever Forward is kind of like our bar when it comes to puzzles. And
It's the low bar.
It's a very low bar. And Ever Forward is kind of like what we use to describe a shitty puzzle game. Like, it pulls an Ever Forward. We've said that a couple of times on the show.
And it's such a shame because you look at this game, you look at the cover art, you look at the screenshots of it.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, this is a pretty game. This could be really cool. And it just doesn't deliver. I was so excited. We both, I think, were excited to try it.
I was this is one of the first PS5 games that you got me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super excited, especially since we were going to do it around the time of the new format. Like, great, this is going to be a cool little puzzle game that we're going to play with this new format. And it just fell flat on its face. And I'm not even going to touch base on the graphics because the graphics don't matter, really. But, no.
Such a shame.
Such a shame. Awful. All right, what's your number 3, Connor?
Mine. I already gave you my number 3.
Oh, yeah, so I'm sorry. What's your number 2?
Well, you've already said it. It was Xenocrisis.
Okay.
For literally all the reasons you gave. I think the biggest problem that game had was, in my eyes, it was the inability to get the true ending unless you had a no-death run. I feel like that's like a new game plus kind of mentality to have on a game, not for the base game for everyone to play.
At least make the no death run a secret ending.
Yeah, or like a secret ending, but you still would get, because no matter what, you got a bad ending if you didn't, or if you died once.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also a big slap in the face was the developer's reaction to criticism. He got so defensive or angry about it, I guess, or basically said, well, this is just how games used to be. You know, they were tough. You know, we don't handhold. And it's like, fuck off, dude. Fuck off with that attitude, because it doesn't make your game any better. Okay?
No.
The only thing that game had going for it was I liked the art style, and the weapons were fun to shoot. That's all you had going, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You could have made a good game, but you chose to have too much pride, I guess, or something, and put this game out.
Yeah, and I have nothing else to say about it that I haven't said already.
Yeah.
So, okay, and that was your number 2?
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 2, Helmut, the Badass from Hell.
Yeah, I probably should have put that one on my list now that I'm thinking about it.
This... Oh, man. Commit some of the sins that Xenocrisis does, mostly because I got excited because it was a twin-stick shooter. And it was a roguelite twin-stick shooter that had a genius concept. Like, you had greatness right there.
Mm-hmm.
The hook of this game is you would progress through the levels, and you would like have different forms that you can switch to. If you died in that form, you would automatically switch to one of the other forms. And so you essentially had 4 lives in a run. And as you progress through the game, you unlocked more forms, and you can it seemed like you could almost, at your hub world before you start another run, choose what forms you want and almost have like builds and different approaches. This is like catnip for someone like me. This was an ingenious concept. The problem, however, being is that it wasn't a true twin-stick shooter. You have to use one of the triggers to shoot. That's fine now because I played Trigger Witch, and Trigger Witch kind of does that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact, for one, in order to permanently unlock these forms, you have to beat the game.
Yeah.
And so it requires you to play multiple playthroughs to finally get to the point that that this game would be fun. Another problem, too, is the developers seem to just straight up abandon this game. They had one single cheat active, and I can't even remember what it was, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, this game was $30. This was expensive.
Yep. It was the sad thing is the art style and the concept I really liked, and that's what drew me to buy this game. And the fact that they just dropped the ball so hard on this one is another reason why a lot of these games on this list are here because they're just so disappointing too. Like, potential was there and it was dropped. And the sad thing is, by the way, I totally forgot about this game, and I also remembered another game that I absolutely hated, which might be your number one. And now I'm like, damn, I need to put those on my list. So my list might shake up here after we've gone through this.
That's totally fine. And the only thing, Helmut had good art too.
That's what I'm saying. I loved this art style. That pixel sprite of like these kind of grotesque creatures.
The sound design was good too.
Yeah, the enemies were interesting. The weapons that you could like pick up and use. I thought all the different like attacks were fun. It's just
you had a genius concept of 4 forms in a run. It was right there.
Yeah,
and you fuck it up.
Yep. Let some people play it before you release it. Get some feedback and be like, okay.
And don't abandon the game.
Yeah. That was annoying to find out that they had just pretty much given up on the game. And I think they were wanting to add like a cheat mode and stuff like this because there's an area where you could put in cheats.
Right, yep.
But they released one cheat, I think, and then never released any more. You put a mechanic in the game and then offered nothing. Like, why?
Yeah. Okay, before we do our number ones, I want to give a dishonorable mention.
A dishonorable mention. Well,
Yes.
It might make our bottom 10 because if we
No,
don't...
hold on. No, I don't think it will.
Oh, it won't. Okay.
And hear me out on this one. That is VVVVV. I said it 5 times, not 7 times.
Oh.
Because when we were playing VVVVVVVV, or how many other fucking Vs, there is another game out there with less Vs in it. And I bought that game thinking that was the game we were playing. And I was playing the game, and I was like, this seems kind of weird. I don't think this is the one Connor suggested. And I took a picture of it for you, and you were like, no, that's not the game. So I want to give a big fucking middle finger to this developer that deliberately named this game that to deceive and get people to buy this game instead of the proper one. Fuck you.
And it didn't even commit the sin of being a clone. It was just a completely different game that they slapped a similar name onto to get the buys. Like,
exactly.
That's even more gross.
Like, if we were doing a like top 10 like worst games we personally played, that would have to be mine, just because that was a big that is heinous.
Yeah. Ugh.
So
frustrating.
Yes. Okay, Connor, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
What is your number one?
Well, it's gonna be a little anticlimactic because you've already said it. Ever Forward.
Okay.
That was my number one worst. I think it was just so unsatisfying to play. The fact that all of the puzzles, like I mentioned previously, like if you solved them correctly, it didn't feel like you were solving them correctly. It felt like you were playing like, you know, in like an old PS2 game where you could kind of like find a solution to something, but it was wrong. But because the game was poorly made or you know, whatever, you could kind of break the game.
Yeah, you almost
to solve
like,
a puzzle.
Like you're brute forcing it almost.
Yeah, like let's say you needed to get to another area in the game, but you were supposed to complete this side quest first, but instead you hop over a border in the terrain or something and squeeze back in behind the world and get in there. That's how solving every puzzle in this game felt. It felt like cheating. It felt wrong, like I'm playing the game wrong. And that's what made it ultimately so unsatisfying. That coupled with all of the glitches, I think of the games we played, it's the most broken one. It felt the most broken.
I can see that.
Like, the fact that they pushed this out the door and didn't fix anything, they've released no fixes to these major problems that many people have reported, shows that they literally abandoned this broken game. They didn't even have the care for their work to fix some of these problems on a PlayStation 5 too, which has more than enough horsepower to handle it. That's what made me so mad about this game.
Yeah. So,
what is your number one?
Dollhouse.
Ooh, that's another good one. I didn't think about that one.
I don't know where to begin with Dollhouse. For one, they literally thrusted you into the game, and they kind of taught you these 20,000 mechanics that you have to keep track of in the level, to the point where we had to go through the settings to turn them off just to have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were traps, mannequins that would move when not in line of sight, which was scary. That one was scary.
Mm-hmm.
Puzzles to solve. This one doll that would like free roam. We ran into her a couple times, but we had threats turned off, so I'm not sure what she does. Probably kill you.
That game was trying to do way too many things. It was like the developer had this like running list of things, and they just kept adding things to it. Oh, let's add this feature to the game. Let's add this feature to the game. Let's add this feature to the game.
Yeah, like it's so hard to describe what the concept of this game is. I don't know how really to describe this game. Seriously, just look up the gameplay for Dollhouse, because you guys would be just as confused as us.
It was a bad game.
Because on top of all these mechanics, for one, there was like this script mechanic to where you had to reorganize a script, and I didn't know if it was right or not. It let us progress, so I assume it was all right. And there was also this clip mechanic to where you would find these like film reels throughout the level, and at the end you have to put them through a projector and put them in a certain order. Were the orders right? I don't know. It let us progress, so it must be.
Yeah. It was just... It was trying to do way too many things and did all of them poorly as a result. If they had trimmed off a ton of the fat and then just focused on a handful of key mechanics, it could have been an interesting game.
And another problem with this too is you had to manage all these mechanics with limited resources. It was on top of everything, it was a resource management game.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have wanted to play it with threats turned on because you're just confused. You're like, what? Okay, I got to do this thing. Me? I got to figure out how to do this other thing. There's like 10 mechanics I'm trying to figure out while I'm being chased by something else. It wasn't necessarily too challenging per se. It was challenging because the game had too much going on. And that's not earned challenge. That's accidental challenge.
Yes, it's artificial challenge.
Exactly.
Artificial challenge, how I define it, is they put you in a situation and they just throw everything at you at once. It's not planned. It's not designed. It's kind of like the final boss of Project Warlock, to where they literally throw everything at you at once, and that's what makes it hard.
Yes.
That's not good game design, people.
Yeah, I kind of think about it this way because it's a similar genre game. Imagine you played Resident Evil and they took every mechanic from every Resident Evil game, smooshed it into one, and then threw all the enemies at you at once. Well, no, not necessarily all of them, but like they were constantly a threat. You had no time to breathe ever. So you're juggling all these different mechanics and like trying to also avoid a danger in the game. And you're like, what the fuck is happening, right? That's how it felt.
However, the one thing that made me really pissed off about this game is something I found out later. They had to patch in a tutorial of how to play the fucking game. And the mechanic to turn off the threats and everything was put in a patch as well.
Yeah, which those were good things to add.
It was.
But they shouldn't have had to exist if the game was created properly in the first place.
And if the story was engaging enough, because there are games to where there's almost no threats, or the threats aren't that much of a threat for people who want to experience the story.
Like Layers of Fear.
Yeah, like Layers of Fear.
You can't die in that game, but it's still engaging and entertaining. You know,
This game had like no entertainment at all, and when you and I tried to play it, we got like the third level maybe before we decided to put it down because we were trying to solve a puzzle, and one piece of the puzzle was missing. It literally did not load in the level.
And according to what I read online, that was a common issue where like the part of the puzzle wouldn't load in properly for you to be able to solve it. And that's really not good. In a game that has puzzles in it, you can't have the puzzles be broken.
Yes.
But anyway, now that we've set our number ones, there's one other game.
You didn't say your number one.
I did. Ever Forward.
Oh, Ever Forward. That's right. I'm sorry.
I want to say one that I forgot that I think is going to make it onto our bottom 10.
Okay.
Scully on the Switch.
Okay.
Remember how ugly and broken that game looked?
It looked fine because I played it on PC, but
I'm talking about on the Switch.
I know, but I remember you just saying it was like the textures weren't good. It was muddy. I think you said it was blurry.
It was the whole game was blurry. The textures were like freaking PS1, PS2 level, and the frame rate was piss, and the controls were so hard that the game was just unplayable. I gave up on it because it was just unplayable on the Switch. That should never have released the way it did, and they just stopped supporting it. And I wish that I had put this on my bottom 5, but I think it will make it onto our bottom 10.
For me, Scully was just boring.
Yeah.
Like I played it on PC. I had no performance issues with it. It was just boring. Like,
yeah,
I was like, the music would loop to the point where I just turned off the music and listened to a podcast while I played.
Yeah. So what I want to do is kind of how we did it last time. I go through my list of games. You tell me where you would put them, and I kind of put them in a tentative place. Then we go through your list. I tell you what I would have given them, put them in a place, and then we can kind of debate where they fit, if that works for you.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So where did you place Ever Forward?
I placed that at number 3.
Let's put it at number 2 for now.
Okay.
Because I had it at number 1.
All right. Where would you place Dollhouse?
Dollhouse. Dollhouse is pretty bad. You know what? I would honestly, now that I'm thinking about Dollhouse, I would be fine putting it at number 1 for now.
Okay.
So I'll agree with you on that one for the moment. Let's see here. Xenocrisis. Where did you have that?
I had that at number 4.
Let's put it at 3 then, because
Okay.
I had it at 2.
All right.
All right. Where did you have? Or wait, where would you put Ether 1? If you had to put it somewhere in the bottom 10, where would you put it?
I would put it probably maybe at number 5 because for me personally, I liked the concept, but the game was just boring.
Then at number 4 it will go because
Okay.
that's where I had it at 3.
All right.
We're just breaking the middle on a lot of these. Max Payne 3.
Oh, I probably had more fun with Max Payne than you did. So I would probably put that maybe 7.
7. Okay, and I had it at 4. Maybe we put it at 6.
6?
Yeah.
6 sounds good.
That's where I'm thinking, for now at least. And then the last one for me was Little Nightmares on the Switch.
That would have to be like, it's kind of funny because last episode you said that Little Nightmares wasn't on your bottom 10.
I said
bottom. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, but remember I had to redo my list.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
I think it would have, if I had a bottom 10, it still would have made my bottom 10.
Yeah, and which is why I want to say that maybe we should put that at 10 because the
Okay.
game itself was fun. It's just the Switch version just sucked.
Yeah.
There was nothing inherently wrong with the game.
It was just a bad port.
It was just yes.
which I think is the same sin that Scully does as well. So,
But Scully was not nearly as fun as Little Nightmares, so I would definitely put that higher on the list.
yeah, where would you put Scully if you had to guess?
Probably an 8, or I'm sorry, or not 8, a 9.
Okay, I'll put that there for now. All right, let's go through the games that you had that I didn't have.
Okay, Helmut
Ooh.
and Carrion. Maybe we should put Carrion at maybe 9.
I think Carrion is definitely above, like quality-wise, above Scully.
Okay, so it would be Little Nightmares, Scully, Carrion, or
Little Nightmares, Carrion,
okay,
Scully.
gotcha.
Because bottom 10 means like Little Nightmares is the best. Remember?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. What else did you have here?
Helmut.
Helmut. What did you have it at?
I had that at number 2.
Ooh. It was pretty bad.
It was.
Let me look. I would maybe put... I could see it at 2 or 3.
I would be comfortable with... I'd be comfortable with 3.
Comfortable with 3?
Yes.
I could do that. We'll move Xenocrisis down to 4. And
Everforward 2.
Everforward's at 2. Okay. So, here's the dealio, Facilio. We have one open spot in our bottom 10.
Which one was that?
It's just, it's number 7.
Okay,
it's
number
blank
7
right now. Is there another, and it doesn't have to be number 7. It could be up or down, whatever. Is there another game that was on your bottom list that you wanted to put somewhere?
I'm going to have to think about that. I need to look back here.
I was trying to think of other games that I was like waffling on putting on there, and I just couldn't think of anything other than the ones that we added over. But I was glad you brought up Dollhouse and Helmut, because those would have definitely made my list had I thought about it a little bit more.
Okay. I think I have a suggestion here.
What's your suggestion?
Renegade.
Ooh, yeah. Renegade was not even really playable.
No. The only reason why I would suggest that was I understand that Renegade was a very popular game at the time. The thing, though, however, is I feel like the controls could have been updated, because Renegade was originally on like the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64 when you had a keyboard.
Yeah.
And the moves you can do in Renegade was probably easier to do on said keyboard. Playing it on the Switch, however, where like the combos and how to move and how to punch was just really confusing. And I think if it was something closer to Fight and Rage mechanics, to where like Fight and Rage is a side scroller beat 'em up, but the controls made more sense.
Fight and Rage was just more fun.
Yeah, but I feel like if they would have updated the controls in Renegade, it would have been more fun.
Yeah,
because the control, like, the game was responsive enough with the controls. I just didn't know what the controls were, and they literally just thrusted you into the game in order to figure it out. You didn't really have a way to see what the controls were, whereas if you were playing this on like an arcade cabinet, it would show you the controls like right in front of you for you to learn. Whereas with Renegade, you would have to hit the pause menu and look at your moves and try to learn it that way. Just overall, not that great.
Okay, I would agree. I'm looking at the list now, and I'll go through it with you, but I already see a swap I want to make.
Okay.
So here's our current list. We have Dollhouse at number 1, Everforward, Helmut, Xenocrisis, Ether 1, Renegade, Max Payne 3, Scully, Carrion, and Little Nightmares.
Okay.
I would propose that Scully is a worse game than Max Payne 3.
Yes, I think objectively it is a worse game.
Cool. Well, I'm going to move those then really quick. What do you have any qualms with this list that you want to express?
Not really.
Because I definitely thought that. Let me look over this one last time here. Yeah, these all kind of sucked.
Everything is terrible tonight.
I kind of like how it is, honestly. I'm waffling a little bit on the Carrion Little Nightmares, but I could be satisfied with them being 9 and then 10 because
Carrion was at least functional.
Carrion was functional.
It was just boring, but not as bad as the other games.
Yes, and Little Nightmares was a good game, but a bad port.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough for me to... I guess where they're at is fine if you're fine with it.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it.
Okay, let me go through the definitive list.
This is the definitive bottom 10 of 2022.
Yep. Here we go.
Do it.
Number 1, Dollhouse. Number 2, Ever Forward. Number 3, Helmut, the Badass from Hell. Number 4, Xenocrisis. Number 5, Ether 1. Number 6, Renegade. Number 7, Scully. Number 8, Max Payne 3. Number 9, Carrion. And number 10, Little Nightmares.
Boom. There you go.
And the caveats on those, 7 and 10, so Scully and Little Nightmares, the Switch versions were the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be clear on that.
Very clear. And maybe you'll see it down in the description, just to be safe. So
Yeah.
if I remember.
Especially because Little Nightmares could make someone's top 10 best games if it was on a different platform.
Absolutely. So yeah, there we go. We week 2 of the holidays done. Next week is gonna be a really, really fun one, which is we're both gonna give our top 10 of the games we played on our own. So I have 10 games I played on my own, and Connor's had 10 games he's played on his own. And we're going to just have a really cool, chill discussion of sharing the games that we played on our off time. There's not going to be a debate. There's not going to be a definitive list. It's just going to be like a fun conversation.
And to be clear, games on this list can also include games we played for the podcast.
Yes.
If we thought they earned a spot on our personal top 10.
Yes. Thank you for that. And the week after, we're going to take an off week just to kind of enjoy the holidays.
We did mull around the idea of making a supercut of the 3 of these if somebody wanted to just binge the whole thing once they're all out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a possibility that we could release that week.
Yes, that is a possibility. I would have to look into and to see how that works, because I still have the raw audio and the finished audio, but that would probably take some work, because that would almost cause me to almost have to re-edit things. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll mull it over. It's a possibility.
But yeah. So that'll just about do it, guys. If you like the show, like and subscribe. Or if you don't like the show, tell your friends. Maybe they'll like it. We also have some merch that the link is down in the description. And that'll do it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time.